billionaire's betrayal. A story of love and revenge, the shocking betrayal, the anniversary gift that destroyed everything. The champagne bottle slipped from Elena Martinez's fingers, shattering across the marble floor of the penthouse suite. But she didn't hear the crash. All she could hear was the rhythmic creaking of the bed in her own bedroom, a bedroom she shared with her husband of 5 years, accompanied by a woman's laughter she recognized all too well, her sister's laughter. Elena stood frozen in the doorway of the $15 million penthouse she'd helped build from nothing, wearing the red dress she'd bought specifically for tonight, their 5th wedding anniversary. The gift box containing the custom Patek Philippe watch fell from her other hand. 5 years. 5 years of building an empire together. 5 years of standing by Marcus Chen when he had nothing but a failing startup and a dream. 5 years of sacrificing her own career, her own ambitions, to be the perfect corporate wife. And this was her reward. The perfect life that was a perfect lie 24 hours earlier. Elena's life had been a fairy tale as the wife of Marcus Chen, the 34-year-old tech billionaire who'd revolutionized artificial intelligence. She lived in a world most people only dreamed about. Charity galas, private jets, magazine covers. She'd been featured in Vogue just last month as the woman behind the genius. What a joke. She'd spent the morning of their anniversary planning the perfect surprise. Marcus had been working late every night for the past 3 months. Or so he'd said. The new product launch, he'd explained, kissing her forehead with those lying lips. Just a few more weeks, baby, and then we'll take that trip to Santorini you've been wanting. Elena had believed him. She'd believed every word because she loved him. Because 5 years ago, when they'd met at a tech conference in Austin, he'd looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. He'd courted her relentlessly, promising her a partnership in every sense of the word. And when his company, Chentech AI, had finally hit it big, securing $500 million in Series C funding, he'd gotten down on one knee at the top of the Empire State Building and asked her to be his queen. She'd said yes without hesitation. The sister she trusted, Victoria Martinez, had been Elena's maid of honor. Her baby sister by 3 years, Victoria had always been the wild one, the beautiful one, the one who floated through life on charm and perfect bone structure. Elena had been the responsible one, the smart one, the one who'd worked 3 jobs to put herself through MIT, while Victoria partied her way through a liberal arts degree. But Elena had never resented her sister. She'd loved her, protected her. When Victoria had been evicted from her apartment in Brooklyn 2 years ago, Elena had convinced Marcus to let her move into their guest house. When Victoria had needed money to start her influencer career, Elena had written the check. When Victoria had shown up crying about another failed relationship, Elena had held her and promised that someday she'd find a love as real as what Elena had with Marcus. What a fool she'd been. The confrontation Elena didn't remember walking to the bedroom door. She didn't remember her hand on the doorknob, but suddenly she was standing there, and they were scrambling apart, and Victoria was pulling the sheets up over her body, sheets that Elena had picked out from a boutique in Paris, and Marcus was stammering her name. Elena. Baby. This isn't, we can explain? Elena's voice didn't sound like her own. It was cold, distant, like it was coming from somewhere outside her body. Explain how my husband is fucking my sister in our bed on our anniversary? Victoria had the decency to look ashamed, but only for a moment. Then something else flickered across her face. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. Victoria started. How long? Elena cut her off, her eyes fixed on Marcus. He at least couldn't meet her gaze. How long has this been going on? Elena, let's talk about this rationally, Marcus began, reaching for his pants. How long? Elena's scream echoed off the walls. 8 months, Victoria answered, her voice quiet. It's been 8 months. 8 months. Elena did the math in her head. 8 months ago was when Marcus had suggested Victoria move from the guest house into the main penthouse to save on commute time. 8 months ago was when he'd started working late. 8 months ago was when he'd stopped touching Elena the way he used to, claiming stress and exhaustion. 8 months of lies. The revelation that changed everything. I want a divorce, Elena said flatly. Now wait a minute. Marcus finally looked at her, and there was something calculating in his eyes that made her skin crawl. Let's not be hasty. We can work through this. Marriage counseling? Counseling? Elena laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to her own ears. You're fucking my sister and you want marriage counseling? Elena, you need to think about what you're throwing away, Marcus said, and now his voice had taken on a harder edge. You signed a prenup, remember? You walk away from this marriage, you walk away with nothing. The prenup. Elena had signed it without reading it carefully, trusting Marcus when he'd said it was just a formality, baby, just something the lawyers require. She'd been so in love, so certain of their future together. I don't care about the money, Elena said. You should, Victoria spoke up, and now she was sitting up in bed, the sheet wrapped around her like a toga, looking almost regal, because it's not just about the prenup, sis, it's about everything. Something in Victoria's tone made Elena's blood run cold. What are you talking about? Victoria smiled, and it wasn't the smile of a guilty mistress, it was the smile of a victor. Chente Ki. The company you think you helped build? Guess who actually came up with the core algorithm? Elena stared at her sister. Remember when Marcus was struggling 3 years ago? When the company was about to go under? You asked me to help him with some coding issues because I'd taken those computer science classes, remember? Elena did remember. Marcus had been desperate, working 20-hour days trying to debug the neural network that would become Chente KI's flagship product. Elena had asked Victoria to help because Victoria had studied computer science before switching to communications. I fixed it, Victoria continued. But I did more than fix it. I rewrote the entire core algorithm. The technology that made Chente KI worth $3 billion? That's mine. My code, my genius. That's impossible, Elena whispered. Is it? Marcus finally spoke up, and now he wasn't even pretending to be apologetic. Victoria's been my true partner this whole time, Elena. The business partner I needed. You were just... He waved his hand dismissively, the face. The perfect corporate wife for the press releases. The ultimate betrayal. We've been planning this for months, Victoria said. And she actually sounded excited now. The affair was just step 1. Step 2 was getting you to file for divorce, so when you walk away with nothing under the prenup, it doesn't look suspicious. Step 3 is Marcus and me going public with our relationship, the brilliant tech CEO and his genius CTO, the woman who was behind his success all along. You're insane, Elena breathed. Both of you are insane. We're in love, Marcus said simply. And we're about to be very, very rich. Chente AI is about to announce a merger with tech giant Industries. The deal will be worth $10 billion. Victoria and I each own 45% of the company. You? He smiled cruelly. You own nothing. Elena's mind was reeling. I helped build that company. I gave up my career at Goldman Sachs to support you. I used my connections to get you your first investors. You were a cheerleader, Victoria interrupted. And now the game is over. Elena looked between her husband and her sister, these two people she'd loved more than anyone in the world, and she saw clearly for the first time. This had all been planned, the whirlwind romance, the marriage, moving Victoria in. All of it had been a long con to get Elena's connections, her credibility, her network, and then discard her like garbage. Get out, Marcus said. You have 24 hours to pack your things and leave. The penthouse is in my name. The cars are in my name. The bank accounts are in my name. You signed everything over when we got married, remember? You trusted me. He smiled. Big mistake. The promise of revenge Elena stood there for a long moment, looking at the wreckage of her life. Then something inside her shifted. The grief, the pain, the betrayal, it all crystallized into something hard and cold and sharp. You're right, she said quietly. I did trust you. I trusted both of you. And that was my mistake. She looked directly into Marcus's eyes. But here's the thing about mistakes. You learn from them. She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Enjoy your victory. Enjoy your merger. Enjoy your billions, because I promise you this. She looked back over her shoulder, and her smile was like a blade. I'm going to take everything from you. Both of you. And when I'm done, you'll wish you'd never heard the name Elena Martinez. Empty threats from an empty woman. Victoria laughed. You're nothing without Marcus. You always have been. Elena didn't respond. She simply walked out of the bedroom, out of the penthouse, out of the life she thought was hers. She didn't take anything with her except her phone and her dignity. But as she stepped into the private elevator, she was already making plans. Because what Marcus and Victoria didn't know was that Elena Martinez hadn't always been a corporate wife. Before MIT, before Goldman Sachs, before she'd met Marcus Chen, she'd been someone else entirely. She'd been a girl from the Bronx who'd clawed her way out of poverty through sheer intelligence and determination. A girl who'd learned to code before she could drive, because it was her ticket out. A girl who'd once hacked into the New York City school system to change her record so she could qualify for advanced placement. That girl had been sleeping for 5 years, lulled by love and luxury. But now she was awake, and she was very, very angry. As the elevator descended, Elena pulled out her phone and made a single call. Hello, Mr. Reeves? This is Elena Martinez. Yes, James Reeves, the journalist. I have a story for you about Chentic AI that's going to blow the tech world wide open. Are you free for coffee tomorrow morning? She hung up and smiled. The game was just beginning. And this time she was playing to destroy. Heartbreak A&D Revenge, the war room Elena had $847 in her personal checking account and nowhere to live. She'd spent the night in a boutique hotel in Soho, charging the room to a credit card that Marcus probably hadn't thought to cancel yet. She'd slept for 3 hours, and when she woke up, the grief tried to drown her again. She'd let herself cry for exactly 10 minutes. Then she'd gotten up, taken a scalding hot shower, and gotten to work. By 7 a.m., she was sitting in a coffee shop with James Reeves, the tech journalist who'd been trying to get an interview with Marcus for 2 years. Reeves was in his 50s, weathered and cynical, with the eyes of someone who'd seen every corporate scandal imaginable. "So," he said, stirring his black coffee, "the wife of Marcus Chen wants to talk. This should be interesting." "Ex-wife," Elena corrected, "or I will be. Very soon." She laid it all out for him. Not the affair, that was personal, and she had more pride than to play the scorned wife in the media. But everything else. She told him about Victoria's claim to the core algorithm. She told him about the suspicious timing of the merger announcement, and then she told him something she'd discovered at 3 a.m., unable to sleep, digging through old files on her laptop. Chentech AI's flagship product, the neural network that made them billions, it's using data that was never properly licensed. Patient medical records, student educational data, private corporate communications, millions of data points that were harvested without proper consent. Reeves leaned forward. "Can you prove that?" "I was Marcus's wife for 5 years. I was copied on hundreds of emails. I attended dozens of board meetings. I have access to documents that would make your career, Mr. Reeves." Elena pulled out a USB drive. "But I need something in return." "What?" "I need you to investigate Victoria Martinez, every company she's ever worked for, every professor she studied under at Columbia, every piece of code she's ever written. I need to know if she actually has the genius she claims to have, because I don't think she does." The discovery Reeves was thorough. Within 3 days, he came back with a report that made Elena's suspicions crystallize into certainty. They met in Central Park, sitting on a bench near the lake. Reeves handed her a folder. "Your sister is a fraud," he said simply. Elena opened the folder. Inside were academic transcripts, employment records, testimonies from former colleagues. The picture they painted was damning. Victoria had failed out of Columbia's computer science program after 1 semester. She'd been fired from 2 tech startups for incompetence. She'd hired freelance coders on Fiverr to complete her coursework in the community college classes she'd taken afterward. She couldn't code her way out of a paper bag, Reeves said. So how did she supposedly create the algorithm that made Chentech AI worth billions? She didn't, Elena said. And suddenly everything clicked into place. I did. The memory that changed everything 3 years ago, when Marcus had been struggling with the neural network. Elena had spent weeks helping him debug the code. She'd worked late into the night, drawing on her MIT education and her experience at Goldman Sachs, where she'd worked on algorithmic trading systems. She remembered now, with perfect clarity, the night she'd figured out the solution. She'd been in the study, Marcus asleep upstairs, Victoria supposedly visiting friends in Boston. Elena had finally cracked the problem, a novel approach to recursive learning that would allow the AI to teach itself exponentially faster than existing models. She'd written the code, tested it, perfected it. Then she'd brought it to Marcus the next morning. "Baby, this is brilliant," he'd exclaimed, kissing her. "You're a genius." But when the company filed the patent 6 months later, Victoria's name was on it as the primary inventor. Elena had been confused but hadn't pushed back. Marcus had explained that Victoria had refined Elena's initial work, and besides, didn't they want to keep it in the family? Elena had believed him. She'd always believed him. "They stole it from me," Elena whispered. "They stole my work and put Victoria's name on it. Can you prove it?" Reeves asked. Elena thought for a moment. Then she smiled. Yes, I can." The evidence, Elena's old laptop, the one she'd used before Marcus had bought her a top-of-the-line MacBook Pro, was in storage. She'd thought about throwing it away a dozen times but had never gotten around to it. Now, it was going to be her salvation. She retrieved it from the storage facility in Queens, her hands shaking as she powered it up. Please work, she thought. Please, please work. It booted up. And there, in her old files, was everything. Every iteration of the code she'd written, every test run, every email to Marcus detailing her progress. All of it time-stamped and saved. An irrefutable digital paper trail proving that Elena Martinez had created the algorithm that had made Chentic AI worth billions. This is incredible, Reeves breathed, looking over her shoulder at the screen. This is a bombshell. We can run this story immediately. No, Elena said. Not yet. I need more. The Alliance Elena's old colleague from Goldman Sachs, David Park, was now a venture capitalist at one of the biggest firms in Silicon Valley. They dated briefly before Elena had met Marcus, and they'd remained friends even after she'd gotten married. She called him from a burner phone. David, I need your help. Elena? Where are you? Marcus has been calling, everyone looking for you. He's telling people you had some kind of breakdown. I'm fine. And Marcus is a liar and a thief. Can we meet? They met at a wine bar in the meatpacking district. David listened as Elena explained everything. The affair, the theft of her work, the merger deal, all of it. Jesus Christ, David muttered. Elena, I'm so sorry. What do you need? Information. You're on the board of Tech Giant Industries, aren't you? David nodded slowly. I am. Then you know about the merger with Chentic AI. I do. It's supposed to be announced next week. $10 billion deal. I need you to delay it. Just for 2 weeks. Can you do that? David studied her face. You're planning something. I'm planning to burn their empire to the ground. Are you in or out? David was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Marcus Chen is an arrogant prick who's been inflating his company's value for years. If you've got evidence that he's a fraud, I'd love to see him taken down a peg. I'm in. The trap Elena spent the next week executing the most important hack of her life. Not a digital hack, a psychological one. She reached out to Victoria through a mutual friend, asking for a chance to talk. I just want closure, the message said. I want to understand why. Can we meet for coffee, please? Victoria, always eager to gloat, agreed immediately. They met at a cafe in Tribeca. Victoria showed up wearing a Chanel suit and a smug expression. Elena, she said, air-kissing her sister's cheeks. You look tired. I've been better, Elena admitted. She looked down at her hands. Victoria, I just need to know. Did I ever mean anything to you? Or was I always just a mark? Victoria's expression softened slightly. Almost imperceptibly. You were my sister. I loved you. But I loved Marcus more, and I loved the life we could build together even more than that. The algorithm, Elena said quietly, the one you claim you wrote. Marcus told me you created it from scratch. I did, Victoria said quickly. Too quickly. Then you wouldn't mind explaining how it works, would you? Elena pulled out a notebook. For my peace of mind, I just want to understand the technology that destroyed my marriage. Victoria hesitated, and in that hesitation, Elena saw everything she needed to see. It's complicated, Victoria said finally. Very technical. You wouldn't understand. Try me. I did go to MIT. Victoria started talking, spinning a story about neural networks and machine learning that sounded impressive, but was completely wrong. She was using buzzwords without understanding them, describing processes that would never actually work. Elena recorded every word on her phone hidden in her purse. When Victoria finally finished her explanation, Elena smiled. That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing. Are we good? Victoria asked, looking almost hopeful. We're done, Elena corrected. We'll never be good again. The article dropped on a Thursday morning, simultaneously on TechCrunch, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. James Reeves had worked with journalists at each publication to ensure maximum impact. The headline read, Chentech AI's billion-dollar lie, how stolen code and data theft built a tech empire. The article laid out everything. Elena's evidence that she'd created the core algorithm, the improperly licensed data, Victoria's fabricated credentials, the recordings of Victoria unable to explain her own supposed creation, documents proving that Marcus had known about the data theft and had actively covered it up. The story went viral within hours. By noon, Hack Chentech AI scandal was trending worldwide. The SEC announced an investigation. Tech giant Industries immediately withdrew from the merger talks. Chentech AI's stock price crashed, losing 60% of its value in a single day. And Elena, sitting in David Park's apartment where she'd been staying, watched it all unfold with grim satisfaction. Her phone rang. It was Marcus, calling from a blocked number. She let it go to voicemail. Elena, what have you done? His voice screamed through the speaker. You've destroyed everything. We'll sue you for breach of contract, for defamation. You'll never work in tech again. She deleted the message without listening to the rest. Victoria tried to hold a press conference, attempting to defend herself. It was a disaster. Without a script, without Marcus coaching her, she crumbled under reporters' questions. Within 20 minutes, she was crying on camera, admitting she'd exaggerated her role in the company's development. The board of Chentech AI held an emergency meeting. By Friday afternoon, Marcus had been forced to resign as CEO. Victoria was fired entirely. But Elena wasn't done. Not even close. The counteroffer, Elena's lawyer, one of the best in Manhattan and a woman who specialized in taking down powerful men, called with interesting news. Marcus wants to settle the divorce. He's offering you $50 million to sign an ENDA and go away quietly. No, Elena said immediately. Elena, that's a lot of money. I don't want his money. I want justice. Then what do you want? Elena smiled. I want my company back. She filed a lawsuit the next day. Not for divorce, not for alimony, but for intellectual property theft and fraud. She was suing for ownership of the patent for the neural network algorithm, seeking to have it transferred to her name as the true inventor. Marcus fought it. He hired the best lawyers money could buy. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the court of public opinion had already convicted him. The judge ruled in Elena's favor. The patent was hers, which meant that Chentech AI's entire business was built on technology she owned. And that's when Elena made her move. She offered to license the technology back to Chentech AI for $1. On one condition, Marcus and Victoria had to publicly admit their fraud, resign from the company permanently, and sign away all their shares. Marcus refused at first. I built this company. He raged in a meeting with lawyers present. I won't let you take it. You didn't build it, Elena said calmly. I did, and now I'm giving you a choice. Take the deal, or I'll license my technology to your competitors and watch Chentech AI collapse entirely. Either way, you lose. But this way, at least the company survives, and the employees keep their jobs. Marcus looked at her with pure hatred. You've changed. No, Elena corrected. You just never really knew me. He signed the papers. The ultimate payback, the new Queen 6 months after the scandal broke. Elena Martinez stood in front of the full-length mirror in her new office, the corner office on the top floor of Chentec AI headquarters that had once belonged to Marcus. She'd changed the decor entirely. Gone were the aggressive modern pieces and the ostentatious displays of wealth. In their place was warm wood, comfortable furniture, and art from emerging artists she'd discovered and commissioned. The space felt human now. Real. Elena had changed too. She'd cut her hair shorter, a sleek bob that framed her face and made her look fierce and competent. She wore power suits now, but on her terms, bold colors and sharp tailoring that commanded respect without trying to imitate the boys' club aesthetic. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The softness was gone, replaced by steel. Chentec AI's new board had voted unanimously to make her CEO. It had been David Park's suggestion, and the remaining shareholders had jumped at the chance. Elena Martinez was the woman of the hour, the victim who'd become a victor, the genius who'd been hiding in plain sight all along. The company's stock price had stabilized and was now climbing again. Elena had immediately implemented new data privacy protocols, apologized publicly for the previous leadership's transgressions, and committed the company to ethical AI development. The press loved her. Silicon Valley loved her. She'd become the face of a new kind of tech leadership, principled, transparent, and female. But Elena's revenge wasn't complete yet. Not by a long shot. The fall Marcus Chen had lost everything. His shares in Chentec AI were worthless after he'd been forced to sign them away. The SEC investigation had uncovered enough evidence of fraud and insider trading to bring criminal charges. He was facing years in prison and millions in fines. His reputation was destroyed. No tech company would touch him. His friends in the industry had all distanced themselves, suddenly claiming they'd always suspected something was off about him. His face had become synonymous with corporate fraud and betrayal, but worse than the legal troubles, worse than the money, was the loneliness. Marcus had built his identity on being the brilliant tech wonderkind, the visionary CEO, the man everyone wanted to know. Now he was just a cautionary tale. Elena knew all this because she'd made it her business to know. She tracked his downward spiral with careful attention, watching as each domino fell exactly as she'd planned. She'd also made sure that Victoria fell just as hard. The sisters reckoning Victoria Martinez had tried to reinvent herself as a victim. She'd gone on a few podcasts, spun a story about being manipulated by Marcus, claimed she'd been used just like Elena had been. Nobody bought it. The recordings of Victoria boasting about the con, the evidence of her fabricated credentials, and the footage of her breaking down at the press conference had made her unhireable. Her influencer career, which had been built on the glamorous life of dating a tech billionaire, collapsed overnight. Her sponsors dropped her. Her followers turned on her. Victoria had reached out to Elena multiple times, begging for help, for money, for anything. Elena had blocked her number after the first message. But Elena's real revenge on Victoria was more subtle and more devastating. Elena had hired private investigators to dig into Victoria's life. What they found was illuminating. Victoria had debts Elena never knew about, gambling problems, a pattern of theft from previous employers that had been quietly settled to avoid scandal. Elena made sure this information reached the right people, not the press. That would have been too obvious. But creditors, law enforcement, former employers who'd signed NDAs that were now expiring. She let the system work naturally. with just a gentle push in the right direction. Within months, Victoria was facing lawsuits, tax liens, and potential criminal charges for embezzlement from a previous job. She'd moved back in with their mother in the Bronx, broken. Elena sent her one message, 6 months to the day after she'd walked out of the penthouse. You said I was nothing without Marcus. Turns out, you were nothing without me. She never heard back. The unexpected complication, Elena thought she'd feel satisfaction. She thought destroying Marcus and Victoria would fill the hollow space their betrayal had created. But as the months passed and her professional life soared, she realized something unsettling. She was lonely. She'd built an empire, but she'd built it in isolation. She had colleagues and employees, board members and investors. But she didn't have friends. She didn't have family. She'd cut everyone out in her single-minded pursuit of revenge. And late at night, alone in her new luxury apartment, bigger and better than the penthouse she'd shared with Marcus, she sometimes wondered if the victory had been worth the cost. That's when David Park asked her to dinner. The unexpected connection. This isn't business, David said when he called. I just want to take you to dinner, as friends. Or maybe as more than friends, if you're interested. Elena's first instinct was to say no. She'd sworn off relationships, sworn off trust, sworn off ever being vulnerable again. But something in David's voice made her pause. Just dinner, she said finally. But I'm not promising anything beyond that. The restaurant was a small Italian place in Greenwich Village. Nothing fancy or flashy. David showed up in jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like the venture capitalist who commanded billion-dollar deals. I wanted to check on you, he said after they'd ordered. Really check on you. Not the CEO version or the warrior woman version. The real Elena. How are you doing? Elena opened her mouth to give him the standard answer. She was fine, she was great, she was winning. But something about his genuine concern cracked through her defenses. I'm exhausted, she admitted. I won. I destroyed them. I got everything I wanted. But I don't know who I am anymore. David reached across the table and took her hand. You're Elena Martinez. You're brilliant and fierce and kind, even though you're trying really hard not to be kind anymore. You're someone who got hurt and fought back. And now you're someone who gets to decide what comes next. What if I don't know what comes next? Then you figure it out. But maybe you don't have to figure it out alone. Elena looked at their joined hands, at David's patient expression, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I'm not ready for a relationship, she said honestly. I don't know if I'll ever be ready again. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm asking for a chance. Take all the time you need, I'll be here. The final confrontation 3 months later, Marcus Chen was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for securities fraud and data privacy violations. Elena attended the sentencing hearing. She hadn't planned to, but the night before, she'd realized she needed closure. Not the corporate victory or the financial revenge, but personal closure. She needed to look Marcus in the eye one last time and know that she'd truly moved on. He looked terrible. The expensive suits were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. He'd lost weight, his face gaunt and aged. When he saw her in the courtroom, something flickered in his eyes. Hatred? Regret? She couldn't tell anymore. After the judge delivered the sentence, Elena waited outside the courthouse. Marcus was let out in handcuffs, flanked by federal marshals. When he saw her standing there, he stopped. "I guess you got what you wanted," he said, his voice bitter. "No," Elena said quietly. "I wanted a husband who loved me. I wanted a partner who respected me. I wanted a family. You took all of that away. Everything that's happened since has just been consequences." "You destroyed me," Marcus said. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone else could see it." Marcus looked like he wanted to say more, but the marshals pulled him away. Elena watched him go and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, no lingering anger. Just a vast, peaceful emptiness. She turned away from the courthouse and pulled out her phone. David had texted her earlier, "Coffee after?" No pressure. She typed back, "Yes. Meet you at our place." Our place. When had they developed an our place? Somewhere in the past 3 months of careful dinners and late-night conversations and slowly learning to trust again. They'd built something. Not a relationship, she still wasn't ready to call it that. But something. Something that felt like it might eventually become hope. The rebirth 1 year after the scandal broke, Chentic AI held its annual shareholder meeting. Elena stood at the podium, looking out at the packed auditorium. The company had not only survived, but thrived under her leadership. Stock prices were at an all-time high. They'd launched 3 new products, all built on ethical foundations with proper data licensing and consent protocols. Forbes had named Elena one of the most powerful women in tech. But more importantly, Elena had transformed the company culture. Chentic AI was now known for work-life balance, generous parental leave, and a zero-tolerance policy for harassment or discrimination. Half of the executive team was women. The board was diverse. The company sponsored coding programs in underserved communities. Elena had taken something toxic and made it beautiful. A year ago, Elena said into the microphone, her voice carrying through the room, "This company was built on lies and stolen work. Today it's built on innovation, integrity, and the talents of hundreds of brilliant people who come to work every day believing we can use technology to make the world better." The applause was thunderous. After the meeting, Elena found David waiting for her in her office. He'd been her biggest champion over the past year, both professionally and personally. They still weren't officially together. Elena had been adamant about taking things slow, but they'd fallen into an easy rhythm of dinners and weekend hikes and late-night phone calls. "You were amazing up there," David said, pulling her into a hug. "I had a good teacher," Elena replied, relaxing into his embrace. For the first time in a year, she let herself fully lean on someone else, let herself be vulnerable. "So," David said carefully, "I have a question to ask you." Elena pulled back slightly, nervous. "What kind of question?" "The kind where I ask if you'd be interested in going away for a weekend." "To Santorini." Elena's breath caught. Santorini. The trip Marcus had promised her. The trip that had never happened. "David, I know what you're thinking," he said quickly. "But this isn't about Marcus or the past or any of that. This is about us, about right now. About making new memories to replace the old ones. But only if you're ready. I meant what I said a year ago. I'll wait as long as it takes." Elena looked at this man who'd stood by her through the worst year of her life, who'd asked for nothing and given everything. She thought about revenge and justice and victory. And then she thought about forgiveness, not for Marcus or Victoria, but for herself. Forgiveness for being naive. Forgiveness for trusting. Forgiveness for being human. "Yes," she said, and smiled, a real smile, one that reached her eyes for the first time in what felt like forever. "Let's go to Santorini. Let's make new memories." David's face lit up. "Yeah? Yeah." Elena kissed him, soft and sweet and full of possibility. "But I'm booking the hotel this time. And we're going first class." He laughed. "I wouldn't expect anything less from the CEO of a billion-dollar company." The mother's visit 2 weeks before the Santorini trip, Elena received an unexpected visitor at her office. Her assistant buzzed her. "Ms. Martinez, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your mother." Elena's blood went cold. She hadn't spoken to her mother, Rosa Martinez, since the scandal broke. Rosa had called repeatedly, leaving tearful voicemails begging Elena to forgive Victoria, to keep the family together. Elena had ignored every message. "Send her in," Elena said finally, steeling herself. Rosa Martinez looked older than Elena remembered. The woman who walked into her office was smaller somehow, her shoulders bent, her hair more gray than black now. She clutched her purse like a lifeline. "Mija," Rosa said softly. "Mama." Elena didn't get up from her desk. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you. To talk to you." Rosa sat down without being invited. "Elena, it's been over a year. Victoria is destroyed. She's living in my apartment. She can barely leave the house. She's on medication for depression and anxiety. She's my daughter. Your sister." Was Elena corrected coldly? She was my sister until she decided to destroy my life for money and a man. She made mistakes. Mistakes? Elena's voice rose. "She didn't accidentally betray me, Mama. She planned it. For months. She looked me in the eye and lied to me while sleeping with my husband. Those aren't mistakes, those are choices." Rose's eyes filled with tears. "She's sorry. She's so sorry. She writes you letters every day that she never sends. She cries herself to sleep. She's lost everything." "Good," Elena said flatly. That was the point. "Elena, this isn't you. You're not cruel. You're not vindictive. This revenge, it's eating you alive. No, Mama. The revenge saved me. It gave me purpose when I had nothing left. It made me strong. It made you hard," Rosa corrected gently. "I look at you now, and I don't recognize my daughter. My Elena had a soft heart. She believed in second chances. She believed in family." "That Elena was a fool," Elena said, but her voice cracked slightly. "That Elena let people walk all over her because she was too kind, too trusting, too weak." Rosa stood up and walked around the desk. She took Elena's face in her weathered hands, forcing her daughter to meet her eyes. "That Elena was beautiful. And she's still in there, Misha. I can see her. Buried under all this anger and pain, but still there." Elena felt tears burning behind her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. "I can't forgive her, Mama. I can't. I'm not asking you to forgive her. Not yet, maybe not ever." Rosa stroked her daughter's hair. "But I'm asking you to let go of the hate. Because it's not hurting Victoria anymore. It's only hurting you." The letter after her mother left, Elena sat at her desk for a long time. Then she pulled out her laptop and opened her personal email. In the spam folder, automatically filtered, were hundreds of emails from Victoria. Elena had never read a single one. Now she opened the most recent one. It was dated from yesterday. "Dear Elena, I know you'll never read this. I know you've blocked me, and you have every right to. But I keep writing anyway because I don't know what else to do. You were right about everything. I was nothing without you. I am nothing without you. Not because of your connections or your money or any of that, but because you were the person who believed in me when no one else did. You were the person who saved me over and over from my own stupidity, and I repaid you by taking everything from you. I don't have an excuse. I can't blame Marcus or my ambition or anything else. I made a choice to hurt you, and I have to live with that choice every single day. The worst part isn't losing the money or the lifestyle or even facing legal consequences. The worst part is knowing that I destroyed the one person who truly loved me, my sister, my best friend, the person I looked up to my entire life. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that if I could go back and change everything, I would. I would give up everything, Marcus, the money, all of it, just to have my sister back. But I can't go back. So I'll just keep writing these letters that you'll never read. And I'll keep hoping that someday, somehow, you'll know that I'm sorry. Truly, desperately, impossibly sorry. I love you. I always have. Even when I was betraying you, some part of me loved you, which makes what I did even more unforgivable. Your sister, if you'll still let me call myself that, Victoria Elena, read the letter 3 times. Then she closed her laptop and put her head in her hands. She cried, not the angry tears of betrayal or the bitter tears of revenge. These were different tears. Complicated tears, because part of her wanted to respond, to reach out, to believe that Victoria's remorse was real. But another part of her, the part that had been forged in fire over the past year, knew that some betrayals were too deep to heal, that love and forgiveness weren't the same thing, that she could acknowledge Victoria's pain without taking responsibility for fixing it. The Santorini revelation, Santorini, was everything Alana had imagined, and nothing like she'd expected. The white buildings perched on cliffs, the brilliant blue of the Aegean Sea, the sunsets that painted the sky in impossible colors, it was breathtaking. But more breathtaking was the feeling of being there with someone who valued her for who she was, not what she could do for them. On their 3rd night, they sat on the terrace of their villa, watching the sun set over the caldera. David poured them glasses of local wine, and they sat in comfortable silence for a while. "Can I ask you something?" David said finally. "Always. Do you still think about them, Marcus and Victoria?" Elena considered the question honestly. "Yes," she admitted, "but not the way I used to. I used to think about them constantly, how to hurt them, how to destroy them, how to make them pay. Now when I think about them, it's more like remembering a movie I watched once. It happened, but it happened to someone else. The old Elena. Do you miss her? The old Elena?" Elena took a sip of wine, thinking. Parts of her. "I miss how easily she trusted, how openly she loved, how she believed the best in people." She paused. "But I don't miss being weak. I don't miss being blind to people's true natures." "You were never weak," David said firmly. "Trusting people you love isn't weakness. It's bravery. What they did says nothing about you and everything about them." Elena felt something shift in her chest. "How do you always know exactly what to say?" "Because I pay attention." David set down his glass and turned to face her fully. "Elena, I've been patient. I've taken it slow. I've let you set the pace. But I need you to know something." "What?" "I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you since before Marcus, if I'm honest. And I know you're not ready to hear that. I know you might never be ready. But I needed to say it, because life is short and uncertain, and I don't want to waste another day not being completely honest with you." Elena's heart raced. Her first instinct was to pull away, to protect herself, to refuse to be vulnerable again. But as she looked at David's open, honest face, she realized something. She was tired of being afraid. "I'm not ready to say it back," she said slowly, "but I think I could be. Eventually. If you're willing to wait a little longer." David smiled. I've waited 5 years. I can wait a little longer. Elena kissed him then, not the tentative kisses they'd shared before, but something deeper, something that felt like a promise. The unexpected alley when they returned from Santorini, Elena found a message waiting for her at the office. It was from an attorney representing Marcus Chen. Her first thought was that he was suing her again, trying some new legal angle to reclaim what he'd lost. But when she opened the message, it was something entirely different. Marcus wanted to meet with her, in person, at the prison. Elena's first instinct was to delete the message and forget about it. But something made her hesitate. Curiosity? A need for final closure? She wasn't sure. Against her better judgment, she agreed. The federal correctional facility was 3 hours upstate. Elena made the drive on a Saturday morning, still questioning her decision the entire way. David had offered to come with her, but she declined. This was something she needed to do alone. The visiting room was exactly like it looked in movies, sterile, institutional, depressing. Marcus was brought in wearing prison scrubs, looking nothing like the confident CEO who'd once commanded boardrooms and commanded respect. He sat down across from her, separated by a plexiglass barrier. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said finally. His voice was different, quieter, without its usual arrogance. "I almost didn't," Elena replied. "Why did you want to see me?" "To apologize." Elena laughed bitterly. "A little late for that, don't you think?" "Yes, but I needed to say it anyway." Marcus leaned forward. "Elena, I've had a lot of time to think in here, about what I did, about who I became. And I realized something. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too stupid and too greedy to see what I had. Is this the part where you expect me to feel sorry for you?" Elena asked coldly. "No. This is the part where I tell you that you were right. About everything. You said I'd regret what I did. And you were right. Every single day in here I regret it, not because I lost the money or the company or my freedom, but because I lost you." Elena studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation of the con. But all she saw was a broken man who'd finally realized the cost of his choices. "You didn't lose me, Marcus," Elena said quietly. "You threw me away. There's a difference." "I know." Marcus's voice cracked. "And I can't fix it. I can't take it back. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not because I want your forgiveness or your pity, but because you deserve to hear it." Elena sat back in her chair. "What about Victoria?" Marcus's face hardened slightly. "Victoria and I haven't spoken since the trial. She tried to visit me once. I refused to see her. Why? Because I finally saw her clearly, the way you must have seen through me. She's not capable of real love, Elena. She's only capable of wanting. And once there was nothing left to want from me, she moved on." Elena absorbed this information. Part of her felt vindicated, but another part just felt sad for all of them, for the years wasted, for the damage done. "I forgive you," Elena said suddenly, surprising herself. Marcus looked shocked. "What? I forgive you. Not for you, for me. Because I'm tired of carrying this anger around. I'm tired of letting what you did define who I am." Elena stood up. "But forgiving you doesn't mean I forget. It doesn't mean I trust you. It doesn't mean we're friends or that I wish you well. It just means I'm done letting you have power over my life." "Elena, goodbye, Marcus." Elena walked out of the prison and didn't look back. As she drove home, she felt lighter than she had in months. Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't about absolving someone else. It was about freeing yourself. The final chapter 6 months later. Elena stood in the nursery of her new home, a beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn that she'd bought with her own money, earned from her own work. The room was painted a soft yellow, filled with natural light and carefully chosen furniture. David came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about? About how much has changed?" Elena said softly. 2 years ago, I thought my life was over. Now look at me, CEO of a billion-dollar company, in love with an amazing man, and about to become a mother. She placed her hands over David's on her stomach, feeling the small swell of their baby growing inside her. "Are you happy?" David asked. Elena turned in his arms to face him. "You know what, I actually am. Real happiness. Not the fake happiness I had with Marcus, where I was always trying to be perfect and please everyone. This is real." "Good," David kissed her forehead. "Because you deserve it. After everything you've been through, you deserve all the happiness in the world." Elena's phone buzzed. Another email from Victoria. She'd started reading them a few months ago, though she still hadn't responded to any. Today's message was different, though. "Elena, I heard through Mama that you're pregnant. Congratulations, you're going to be an amazing mother. I wanted you to know that I'm leaving New York. I'm moving to Portland to work at a women's shelter. It doesn't pay much, but it feels right. Like maybe I can do something good with my life, even if I can't fix what I broke. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. To be the kind of person you always believed I could be. Take care of yourself and your baby. I hope you find all the happiness you deserve." Elena read the message twice, then did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She hit reply. "Victoria, thank you for your message. I'm glad you're finding a new path. I'm not ready for us to have a relationship again. I don't know if I ever will be. But I don't hate you anymore. And maybe, someday, that can be enough. Take care of yourself." She pressed send before she could second-guess herself. It wasn't forgiveness, not really. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was an acknowledgement that they were both human, both flawed, both trying to move forward from the wreckage of their choices. "Who was that?" David asked. "Just closing a chapter," Elena said, slipping her phone back in her pocket. She looked up at him and smiled. "I'm ready to focus on the future now. Our future." Epilogue. 5 years later, the annual Chentech AI Charity Gala was Elena's favorite event of the year. The company donated millions to tech education programs for underserved communities, and Elena always made sure it was a celebration worth attending. This year, she stood on the stage in a midnight blue gown that accommodated her professional authority and feminine grace. At her side stood David, her husband of 3 years, and somewhere in the crowd was their 4-year-old daughter, Sophie, being doted on by her grandmother, Rosa. 5 years ago, Elena said into the microphone, addressing the crowd of tech leaders, investors, and philanthropists, this company was at a crossroads. We could have disappeared into scandal and shame. Instead, we chose to rebuild, to become better, to create technology that actually serves humanity rather than exploiting it. The applause was warm and genuine. Today, I'm proud to announce that Chentech AI is launching the Martinez Fellowship Program, offering full scholarships and mentorship to women from underrepresented communities who want to study AI and computer science. Because the future of technology should belong to everyone, not just the privileged few. As the crowd applauded again, Elena caught sight of someone in the back of the room, a woman with familiar features, older and sadder than she remembered, watching from the doorway. Victoria. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. Elena felt the old anger flare, then fade just as quickly. Victoria gave a small nod, not asking for anything, just acknowledging the moment, and then she turned and left. Elena didn't follow her, didn't call out, just let her go. Some wounds healed, some didn't, and that was okay. After the gala, Elena found David and Sophie in the lobby. Sophie was half asleep, her head on David's shoulder. "Ready to go home, Mama?" David asked. Elena took her daughter from his arms, breathing in that sweet child smell of shampoo and innocence. "Yeah," she said. "Let's go home." As they walked out into the New York night, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The betrayal, the pain, the revenge, the healing. All of it had led to this moment, standing under the stars with her family, finally at peace. She'd lost everything once, and in losing it, she'd discovered who she really was. Not Marcus Chen's wife, not Victoria Martinez's sister, not a victim, just Elena Martinez, CEO, mother, survivor. Woman who'd been broken and put herself back together stronger than before. And that, she realized, was the ultimate revenge. Not destroying, but becoming someone so complete, so successful, so genuinely happy that their betrayal became just a footnote in her incredible story. The end.